All right, I will say good morning. Shachianu v'kimanu v'gyanu lazman hazeh. What an incredible zechus, Baruch Hashem, to be able to begin a new Masechta. Every new Masechta brings with it such excitement, such energy. And now, Baruch Hashem, we come to the end of the Bavas, as I heard being discussed in back over here. The end of the Bavas, beginning of the end of the Bavas. And Bava Basra Hashem is going to be incredible. It's going to be wonderful. It's going to be uplifting, spiritual, holy, transcendent in every single way. Begin by Meir Hashem, thanking all of our sponsors. Thank our TALMUD TORAH sponsors for the month of Sivan. Those families who have gone ahead and dedicated all of the Sherman Drushos this month. We thank Stephen Teri Czinn with gratitude to Hashem as they welcome their fifth grandchild, Gavriel Amichai Czinn, and in loving memory of Steve's mother, Doris Czinn, Devorah, Basra, Yisroel Yoel, Zechus Shaindy and Avraham Kelman from Yisrael Yoel, commemoration of the yahrzeit of Avram's father, Rephael Yechiel ben Avraham. We thank our week of learning sponsors, Berel Rachel Galkin, in the zechus of refuah shleima to their nephew, Chaim Meir ben Tzirel Bluma. And I was shocked that no one has taken the opportunity to dedicate the first half of Bava Basra. I can't believe that no one needs it. I claimed it. I claimed it already. I claimed it. First half of Bava Basra as Emir Hashem, dedicated by my wife and I in the zechus, Baruch Hashem, of this entire incredible shir, in the zechus of Klal Yisrael, for the zechus of the return of our hostages, and in the zechus of the incredible success of our holy soldiers. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu grant them incredible ziyata d'shmaya and besaros tovos to Klal Yisrael. Rabosai, Daf in Beis, Gimel, Dalit, and Hey are open. Chaperein. Why not? We're coming anyway. Why not capitalize on the zechus of the power of the Talmud Torah for you, for your mishpacha, and for all of Klal Yisrael? All right, with that, let us begin. Today's daf is Daf Beis. So let's say, so again, we are beginning a new, let's begin the Mishnah, and then Emir Hashem will give a little bit of background from Tosas, Emir Hashem. So the Mishnah says as follows: Hashutfin sharatzu lasos mechitza b'chatzer. If you have partners, and partners want to go ahead and create a partition, create a mechitza. Again, we'll discuss the etymology of the word mechitza, Emir Hashem, in the Gemara in just a little bit. Hashutfin sharatzu lasos mechitza. So if partners want to go ahead and create a mechitza in a chatzer. So bonin as hakosel be'emsa. They build a wall in the middle. So first of all, let's talk about a little bit in general. From Masechta to Masechta, you try to generally find some type of connection, some type of binding thread. I'm sorry. Good? Okay, thank you. So in general, there is some type of connection between one Masechta and another. So I just want to draw your attention to something very interesting. If you take a look at the top Tosas, Hashutfin. So if you take a look again at the end of that Tosas, so if you look last couple lines, it says, Va'omeri, Dahainu Taima Mishum Dekaya Hach Pirka Delael, Habayis Va'aliyah Shal Beis Shenaflu, Cholkim Be'etzim. V'karlu Hasam Gemara Shutfin V'katani Nami Beis Gina. So I'll just point out, Tosas says it's a very simple connection. How did Bava Metzia end off? Bava Metzia ended off with neighbor relations or partner relations. Again, in Bava Metzia, we're talking about two people who occupy a two-story house, right? Or again, tiered terracing, like we saw in yesterday's daf. So therefore, Tosas brings down that this Masechta really opens up with the same discussion regarding partners who live side by side, and ultimately, again, what their obligations, responsibilities, or rights are regarding one another. So that's just the continuity of the Masechtas. Ultimately, again, a continuation of the discussion of partnerships. Okay, so now we come to our Mishnah. So take a look at Rashi. Hashutfin, sheishlen chatzer b'shutfus, ubate shnein psuchin, lusocho, b'chol chatzeros sheshanu chachamim lifnei habatim hein v'rov tashmishan b'chatzer. So we'll say, so just to give you a little bit of context over here. So remember, the way that a Talmudic chutzner worked was as follows: that you would have multiple homes opening up into a shared courtyard. So just the easiest way to illustrate this is Reuven and Shimon live in the same, right, opposite each other. They share a courtyard. At this point in time, what happens over here? So they decide, and again, we're going to discuss the parameters of all of this, but let's just read the Mishnah, let's just translate it directly right now. Shutfin sheratzu lasos mechitza. So they want to go ahead and make a mechitza. So it sounds like from the Mishnah that both are in agreement that they want to erect a wall, they want to erect a partition. So now that that's the case, the Mishnah tells you how do they do it? They build it be'emtza. Rashi says, what does it mean be'emtza? Zen no sing michalko chatz. First, I'm sorry. Also, there are notebooks. There are Bava Basra notebooks available over here in the front. Again, as we start a new Masechta, it is so important, if possible, whether you're taking some notes in the margins of your Gemara or you're taking some notes in the notebooks that we provide, it is so kedai. We're going to amass so much information on a daily basis. Again, maybe you're one of those select few who's able to retain everything that we learn. I am not one of those, right? Even though I'm giving the Shem, still not able to. So Lamaisa, again, if you could walk away from every daf with a nugget, with a nakuda, with an idea, with a halacha, with a machshava, something that is then yours from the daf of Gemara. And again, the notebooks are beautiful. You can see them line up on your bookcase, Amir Hashem, with the name of every Masechta there. It's quite beautiful. So please take advantage of the opportunity. So again, the Mishnah says, you build the wall be'emtza. Says Rashi, what does it mean be'emtza? Zen no sein mechalko chatzi makom, oviakosel v'chein zeh. So what this means is, obviously a wall has a width. A wall has a width. So every partner, each partner, or again, we're calling it shutfin, Reuven and Shimon both contribute half of the width of the land necessary for the wall from their own. Let me say that better. Each of them contribute half of the necessary area for the wall. Right? So let's say again, for example, the wall spans 4 amas, for argument's sake, a width of 4 amas. Reuven is going to give 2 amas. Shimon is going to give 2 amas. That's the halacha. Okay, so now let's go weiter. Makom shnagu livnos gvil. So gazis, kfisin, levenin, bonin, akol kamin agamadina. So we actually just saw this in yesterday's daf as well, which is really quite amazing. What do you build the wall of? So walls were typically made of different things. So remember, we just literally saw this yesterday. Gvil, unhewn stone. Gazis, hewn stone. Kfisin are half bricks. And levenin are whole bricks. So these are all the different materials in which one would go ahead and build a wall of. So what do you build your wall of? If Reuven and Shimon want to go ahead and erect a partition in their field, what do you build it in? Hakol k'minhag hamedina. Everything follows the minhag hamedina. Now, this is very important. Rashi says, "Hakol k'minhag hamedina. Im minhag livnos bigvil ein Gavriel Yechiel lomar eini chafetz ela gazis." So we'll say what this means is neither party has the right to. We're going to talk about the ability to force a division. But the Gemara says over here that halacha l'maisa, neither party has the ability to go ahead and force the other to use a material that's not the commonly used material. So let's say again, normally in this locale, they build a wall out of gazis, out of hewn stone, so neither party could force the other to go ahead and build it out of gvil. Okay, fine, let's go back there. Gvil, so I'll say, so now the Mishnah goes through and tells us the width of different walls. The width of different walls. So gvil. So what happens if you have unhewn stone? Zen nosin gimel tfachim, zen nosin gimel tfachim. So apparently a wall of unhewn stone has a width of 6 tfachim. A width of 6 tfachim. So therefore, again, we're going to see why the Mishnah feels compelled to illustrate this, even though it's pretty intuitive. But let me say, if you're building a wall of gvil, so therefore that is Okay, Satan always gets involved in the beginning of every single Masechta. Always gets involved. All right, good. So I'll say, so now what happens if it's gvil? So then halacha l'maisa, the width of a gvil wall is 6 tfachim, which means again each party is going to contribute 3 tfachim towards that wall. Because this hewn stone, zen nosein tfachim umechza. So if it comes to a wall of hewn stone, so again I will say, remember, hewn stone is thinner than unhewn stone. So therefore, again, whereas a wall of unhewn stones will be 6 tfachim, a wall of hewn stone will be 5 tfachim. So therefore, again, each party contributes 2.5 tfachim each. Next, the kfisin, half bricks, zen nosein tfachim, v'zen nosein tfachim. So apparently a wall of half bricks is 4 tfachim wide. Therefore, each party will contribute 2 tfachim each. Bilavenim, whole bricks, zen nosein tefach umechza, v'zen nosein tefach umechza. With whole bricks, the entire width of the wall is 3 tfachim, and therefore again, Each party contributes 1.5 tefach. And I will say, I mentioned this yesterday, that it sounds strange, right? That a wall of half bricks is thicker than a wall of whole bricks. Remember again, we saw this in Rashi in yesterday's daf. How did they use half bricks? It was half bricks stacked side by side, but there's mortar in the middle. So it's that mortar in the middle that really goes ahead and actually gives the wall an additional depth to it. Okay, so therefore we'll say, so that is the halacha. So now that we've gone through all of this, so we'll say, so therefore here's what we have. Three basic concepts so far in the Mishnah. Number one, when partners want to divide a chutzner, we build the wall in the middle. That's halacha number one. Number two, what do you build the wall of? Minhag Medina. And number three, which is not a fact but rather an illustration, the Mishnah goes through all the different building materials that one could use for a wall, and therefore again telling us the exact amount of space that each partner would have to contribute towards the width of the wall. Good. Now we come to fact number 4. Lefichach. Im nafal hakosel hamakom va'avanim shel shnei. So we'll say, so this is incredibly important. Therefore, if the wall falls down, so what's the halacha? So we'll say, so sometimes when the wall so remember, let's go back, this is very exciting, let's go back to Bava Metzia for just a second. We learned about wall falling down. Right? We'll say, what do we learn about wall falling down? Right? About how do you divide up the whole bricks and the broken bricks. So remember again, I will say, that was talking about a different kind of case where you had two people living on a 2-story structure. Right? So then again, remember, it depended if the building pancaked or if it toppled. Right? If it toppled, we assume the broken stones were from the upper story. If it pancaked, then the broken stones were from the lower story. This is a different kind of case. That's talking about, again, where two people have different kind of claims. In this case over here, remember, Reuven and Shimon have equal claims, right? They're building a wall and they're living on two sides of it. So therefore, the Mishnah says, halacha number 4, if the wall falls down, the space the wall occupied as well as the materials are split evenly. Again, we'll say, you say like this, when the wall falls down, you think like this, maybe there's going to be a machlokes. Well, whose property was the wall situated on? Right? Or for that matter, again, who contributed the bulk or the majority or the minority of the materials? Well, now that we read the Mishnah, those questions aren't asked. Why aren't those questions asked? Because I recognize that now the wall itself is built in the middle of the two chatzeros, and they share equally in the cost of the wall. So therefore, again, the Mishnah says, if you live in a chatzer with someone, and there is a wall there, so I'll say, let me just illustrate this out. Right? Reuven and Shimon are living in a chatzer together. They decide they want to divide up the chatzer. So again, they open up Basra, Daf, Beis, and Aleph, tells them exactly how to put up a partition wall. Fantastic. Now, time goes by, Reuven and Shimon are no longer the residents there. Instead, now it's Levi and Yehuda. Right? Related, unrelated, doesn't matter. Now what happens? The wall comes down. Levi and Yehuda are not the people who put up the wall. So we'll say, so now Levi and Yehuda are wondering, well, what do we do? Who owns the area upon which the wall was situated? How do we divide up the materials of the wall? Now the Mishnah says, it's not a suffix, because walls are always built the same way. The way walls in a chutzner always work is, each party contributes 50% of the land on which the wall is situated, and each party contributes 50% of the cost of the wall. So therefore, should the wall fall down, it is clear that the land upon which it's situated is split 50-50, and the materials themselves are split 50-50. That's the way chutzner walls work. Incredible. Next, the Chaim Begina. This same halacha applies in a garden. This is not just in a chutzner. This same halacha applies in a garden as well. Rashi says, "V'chin begina mechayven shnehem livnos b'makom shenagu ligdar be'emsa." We could obligate both parties to go ahead and put up the wall in a place where it is customary to put up the wall. Okay. Aval bebika. Now we'll say bika literally means a plain. Rashi points out over here, sadeh halavan, in a grain field. Let's say Reuven and Shimon own 2 grain fields that are side by side. Then what's the halacha bebika? Makom shenagu shelo ligdar ein mechayven also. But I will say, but halacha l'maisa. So let's say apparently in a grain field. So again, neither party could force the other to go out and put up a wall, a partition. Now I will say, let me just give you a little bit of coming attractions over here. What we're going to see is, what is the function of this wall? What is the function of this wall? So really we're going to see the function of this wall is to allow for an element of privacy within one's property. One only needs privacy in a property in which they may be doing private things. But in a property where private things are not really occurring, right? then halacha l'maisa, neither party could force the other to put up a wall. So you begin to see these distinctions now, right? So, for example, in a chatzar is my home. Rabbi, you have to understand something that, like, a chatzar in Talmudic times was an extension of the domicile. So activities of daily living went ahead and took place in your chatzar. So I will say, so again, I don't mean that a person is walking around like in a non-sanua state, but let's say a person was doing their laundry or doing other stuff in their chatzar, things that I want privacy for. Like I don't need other people around when I'm doing those kind of things. So in a chatzar, so we'll talk about this. So in a chatzar, where a person is performing things that of a more private nature, we could force a wall, a division wall. Again, I'm getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. Just want you to see this distinction between the spaces. That's why, again, a gina, what about a garden? So a garden, you can see, is not the same as a chatzar. That's why the Mishnah said, with a gina, if the minhag hamakom is to put up a wall, we'll put up a wall. But it sounds like if the minhag hamakom is not to put up a wall, neither party could force the other. Right? Once you come to a grain field, so a pure agricultural space, people really aren't engaging in activities of daily living in their wheat field. So because of that, neither party could force the other to put up a wall. Neither party. Now I will say, because what I want to point out to you is the Mishnah, I don't want to say the Mishnah is misleading, but it's interesting because the way, and we're going to see this in the Gemara, the way the Mishnah is phrased is, Hashutfin sharatzu lasos mechitza. How do you understand that phrase? What's happening over here? Both parties want to. What we're going to talk about is the ability for one party to force the other. Right? Reuven says, right, Shimon, I love you, but tall fences make good neighbors. Right? I want the wall. Shimon says, I don't want the wall. I like the open floor plan over here, right? I don't want the wall. So again, we'll talk about the ability of one partner to force the other to do it. That's only going to apply in a situation where the wall is necessary for privacy, for activities of daily living. So we have the chatzar, under the chatzar, the gina, and once you get to the wheat field already, again, there's no need for privacy in a wheat field. At least so we think right now. So what do you do? So I'll say in a wheat field, now obviously, the caveat to all of this is, hakol kamina gamadina. Right? Everything goes by what is common and customary. So obviously, if you live in a place where it's customary to put up walls between wheat fields, then you'll put up walls between wheat fields. But assuming you don't live in such a place, neither party could compel the other. So what do I do? I like Reuven very much, but I want a wall by my wheat field. I'm a privacy guy, right? So I want the wall by my wheat field. So what are my options? So the Gemara says, this is so beautiful, so interesting. Ela imratza konis l'soch shalo. Ubona va'ose chazis mibachutz. So this is interesting. So obviously, I have the option to build a wall. How do I build a wall? Exclusively and fully on my property. No problem. You could do that. So I'll pull back into my property, and halacha l'maisa build the wall there. Now, remember, what's the problem now? So the Mishnah says, and what I do is I put some type of sign. Chazis means a sign or symbol on the outside of the wall, meaning the side of the wall that faces my neighbor. What does that sign show? This wall was built by Silber. Now, why is that important? Because one day, should that wall fall down, right, I want it to be clear that A, the land upon which it's built, and B, the materials that are used are exclusively mine, right? As opposed to the first part of the Mishnah, when you have a wall and a chatzar, if it falls down, everyone knows space is equally divided, materials equally divided. Here, this is my wall, and it's on my property. So I don't want to lose the property, I don't want to lose the material. So therefore, again, put some type of symbol on the outside of the wall. Ose chazis mibachutz. Fine. Lefichach, therefore, im nafal hakosel, if the wall falls down, hamakom va'avanim shelo, both right, it says shemakom, the area upon which the wall is situated, and the avanim and the stones belong to me. Okay, incredible. Im asumidas shnehem. So we'll say, so now what happens if Reuven and Shimon Reuven and I share adjoining wheat fields, and we agree to put up a wall. So we agreed to put up a wall. So now again, there's no minhag medina like that, but we agreed to put up a wall. Then what's the halacha? So the regular says like this: So in that case, again, we revert back to the beginning of the Mishnah. So meaning again, Reuven will contribute half of the space. I'll contribute half of the space. Va'osin chazis mikan umikan. And we go ahead and we each make a symbol on the other side of the wall. So I'll make a symbol on the side of the wall facing Reuven's property. Reuven will make a symbol on the side of the wall facing my property. And therefore, again, that reminds us, in nafal hakosel, Hamakom va'avanim shel shnehem. Ultimately, again, therefore, if the wall falls down, both the area upon which the wall is situated and the materials belong to both of us. Most of the Gemara is going to ask the obvious question is, so just put nothing. In other words, why do you have to put a symbol on both sides? Just put nothing on that wall. And again, if there's nothing on the wall, we go back to the beginning of the Mishnah, where we could assume that what? When there's no simon, we assume that the area is divided equally, and the materials are divided equally as well. Incredible. Hosai, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov. We have completed our first Mishnah of Maseches in Bava Basra. Absolutely incredible. So I have to share with you just an incredible, magnificent, and beautiful insight based on Lubavitcher Rebbe and Likutei Sichos. So the Rebbe says like this. It's such a beautiful idea that we'll build upon. The Rebbe says, "Hashutvin sheratzu la'asos mechitza." So the Rebbe says like this. Who are the shutvin? Who are the partners in life? So I read in Kriyas Shema, "V'yahavtas Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha." B'chol levavcha. Love Hashem with all of your heart. All of your heart. And Rashi quotes the Gemara that says, what does it mean? B'chol levavcha? B'shnei yitzrecha. With your two yitzers, with your two inclinations. With your yetzer hara and your yetzer hatov. That is an interesting idea. We saw this many times in Yiddishkeit. One of the most beautiful ideas is, I recognize that my goal is not to eradicate the yetzer hara, the negativity within me. We saw this in Reb Tzadok, in our good old days. We have to get back to Tzidkas HaTzadik. But we saw this in Reb Tzadok many moons ago, where the whole idea is channeling. When I do things wrong, when I commit averos, what that represents is I have energy. I have energy inside of me. And now the problem is my energy is getting misdirected into all the wrong places. So what's my avoda? My avoda is to see, you ever see this? It's an incredible thing. The sometimes a person can be so tired and so sluggish, and yet, in that same day, I do an avera, and I do it with like such zrizos. Right? There's such energy, or sometimes after or during the Avera, I feel so awake, right? And I feel so alive, and I feel it's so interesting. And then Avera's over, and I'm schlepping again, right? So what's the incredible part about that Avera? What does that show me? That shows you that I have energy. Okay, right now I'm putting it in the wrong place, but if I could just direct it a little bit differently, there's no telling what I could accomplish. So therefore the Rebbe says, that's what it means, V'yahavtas Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha. Love HaKadosh Baruch Hu with all of your heart. All of your heart means with your Yetzer HaTov and your Yetzer Hara. That at the end of the day, a person has to figure out a way. You're never going to eradicate your Yetzer Hara. It's not going to happen. But I could channel all of that energy that I use for sin. I could say, okay, I did this Avera, I did this, which means I have all this energy, all this capacity. How do I channel it towards something different? So the Rebbe says something so beautiful. Hashutfin, who are the partners in a person? Who are the partners in a person? The Yetzer HaTov, V'Yetzer Hara. Those are the shutfin. Those are the partners in my life, right? Those are the partners, right? And they're both active partners. The Yetzer HaTov, Yetzer Hara are the partners in me. So what happens? The shutfin understand that sharatzu la'asos mechitza. The only way to exist in life is to create some type of partition. I am not going to eradicate the Yetzer Hara. That's it. I'm not going to eradicate it. So instead, what do I need to do? I need to go ahead and I need to create boundaries for myself. I need to identify the fact that I need to make a mechitza. I need to create gidorim in my life. If I don't create protective boundaries for myself, then unfortunately, there is no telling what I want to say. You see this all the time, that people allow themselves to be put in situations and then something happens. I'm like, oh, I can't believe that happened. I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I acted like this. Really? You can't believe it? You can't believe it? What did you think was going to happen when you went to that place? What did you think was going to happen when you watched that thing? What did you think was going to happen when you kept company with those? What did you think was going to occur? So therefore, says the Rebbe so beautifully, there are shutfin, there are partners inside of me, and the only way for me to not get derailed and for the Yetzer Hara to become the dominant partner in my life is ratzu lasos mechitza, is if I create boundaries. If I create boundaries, so as I said the Rebbe, that is the Musar Haskell. Create boundaries in your life. Because without a mechitza, ultimately, again, the Yetzer Hara is going to derail things. But I would be mosif on the Rebbe one piece. Because what does the Mishnah say? It's not enough. We're going to see in just a moment. Mechitza can mean a lot of things. It's not enough in life to build a mechitza. Rather, what do you need? What's the next line of the Mishnah? Bonenes hakosel. You have to create a wall. See, Rabbi say in life, a person has to create boundaries. And sometimes you have to draw your line in the sand and you have to say, this is something I'm not doing. Boundaries are only meaningful if they are immovable. If I make boundaries, but they're fluid, right? If I make, because we're going to see, by the way, mechitza can mean a lot of things. You know what mechitza can mean? You know, like on a property, you could put like boundary markers, right? So what's the boundary marker? It's like a piece of wood. It looks like those things like they mix paint with, right? It's a piece of wood that's spray painted orange on top. Right? So you ever see someone come over to, there's a boundary marker over there. We better not step over there, right? There's a boundary marker, right? Again, what does it tell you? I think it usually tells you again where the property ends, or like there's a gas line somewhere, something like that. Right? It's meaningless. I mean, it's meaningful in that you know where the property begins, property ends, but it's meaningless in terms of creating an actual boundary that people go past or don't go past. I'll give you a perfect example. We'll say, by the way, it's a public service announcement. Do not cross under the tape in the parking lot. Right? It's not there for cosmetic purposes. Right? It's not there. That is a dangerous area to pass. There's heavy machinery. They're undermining the ground over there. So I'll say, so it's incredible, right? It says caution. It's red. There's heavy machinery that's there. And like people are just walking by, checking their email, tweeting, whatever, liking stuff on Facebook, whatever they're doing. And as they're walking, I'll say, why? Why? Because it's just a piece of tape. Because pieces of tape are not real boundaries. Mechitzas are not real boundaries. People go over them, under them, walk by them, ignore them all the time. And it's the same thing in life. If you create boundaries for yourself, but all it is a little boundary marker, but all it is a little piece of tape, you are gonna rampage right over that. So therefore the Rebbe says the key to success in life is, I'm not going to vanquish my Yetzer Hara. I'm not. I'm going to try to channel it. I'm going to try to subdue it a little bit. I'm going to try to kind of keep a lid on it a little bit. Most importantly, channel it, but I'm not going to vanquish it. But what I need to do is create boundaries. But what kind of boundary? Bonenes hakosel. That's your wall. But say, what are your walls in life? What are your no-go areas? And you can't say, well, my no-go area is I'm not marrying my sister, right? No, I don't mean like that. In other words, let's say, come on. I mean a bit more ambitious than that, right? So let me say, what are my no-go areas? What is the boundary? What is the co-self for me that no matter what, I'm not going past this. This is something I don't do. This is not the kind of person I want to become. What is your co-self? What is your no-go area? And I will say, by the way, the no-go area is not just in the positive, it's also, the no-go also helps to frame in a positive way the kind of person you want to be. I was going to say, a no-go could be, I'm not the kind of person who sleeps in every single day, or 3 times, whatever it is. It doesn't have to just be in Isser. It's also positively the framework that I create for myself in order to become the person I want to be. If you don't build your walls, you will never become the kind of person you want to be. Says the Rebbe, that is the opening message of Maseches Bava Basra. Recognize the partnership that is churning inside of you, and recognize that without the proper partitions, without the proper gidarim, without the proper life fail-safes, then ultimately, again, unfortunately, the Yetzer Hara becomes the dominant partner, and over time drowns out the voice of the Yetzer Tov. Conversely, erect your proper walls, erect your proper boundaries, and in Meretz Hashem, you'll find a way to subdue and ultimately channel that Yetzer Hara and turn him not into an adversary, but instead an advocate for your personalistic growth. Incredible. We'll say Gemara. Savrua, my mechitza. So we'll say, so now it's interesting. What does the word mechitza mean? What does mechitza mean? So the Gemara says, Guda, it means a wall. Rashi says, Guda is a kosel. Kidisanya, mechitza sakem shenifritza. So it's actually a really interesting case. If you have a wall, okay, so a little Gemara is throwing a lot at us on today, Daf Beis, of Maseches Bava Basra. Klaya Kerem. What's Klaya Kerem? You are not allowed to go ahead and plant wheat and vines in the same space, right? You're not allowed to do that. And any growth that comes from that is biblically prohibited. So I will say, so I'm just going to give you 2 halachas outside. Know what the halacha is? So how much space do you have to place between a vineyard and a grain field and grain? Talaramas. There's an exception to that rule. What's the exception to the rule? If you have a wall in between those 2 spaces, you could even build each of them up to the wall. So for example, if if I have wheat and Reuven has a vineyard, no, I want the vineyard. I have the vineyard and Reuven has the wheat. So what happens? So again, if I build a wall, there is a wall, I could put my vines right up to the wall, and Reuven could bring his grain right up to the wall. Okay, so that's the halacha. Now, we're picking up over here, mechitza sekem shenifritza. So what happens if there's a wall between Reuven and I, and it breaches? So what's the halacha? Omer lo gidar. We say to me. Now, both says interesting. Rashi says over here, Omer lo. Rashi says, lebala kerem gidor ata shalo ye'esru gifanecha es tvuas asad mishum kilayim lefisha samach bal asad ezra so lismoch samoch legeder. Shabbos says it's very interesting. So, whose responsibility is it to repair a breach in the wall? Me, the owner of the vineyard. Now, it's interesting. Even though this might be a shared wall, it's my responsibility. Now, why is it my responsibility? So, it's interesting because since vines grow out, it just sounds like what's happening over here is that since vines grow out, if there's going to be klaya kerem, it's going to be because of me, not because of the wheat guy, not because of Reuven. Therefore, the responsibility is upon the owner of the vineyard. Obviously, if Reuven, the owner of the wheat field, was a poshea, he was negligent, that's something different. But assuming it just breached, something just happened, it breached, the obligation is upon me, the owner of the vineyard, to go ahead and mend the breach in the wall. Okay, Omer lo gidar, chazra v'nifritza. What happens if again it breaches again? Omer lo gidar. So ultimately again, so that Omer lo means the halacha tells me, the owner of the vineyard, so repair it. Nisya amid beis, nisya ish emena. So let's say again now, nisya ish emena literally means I didn't do my job. Not that literally I had yeyosh, but like it looks that I had yesh. In other words, I've abdicated my responsibility, and I have not gone ahead and repaired the wall. Then what's the halacha? V'lo gadra harei ze kiddush. Ultimately, again, now it is also because of kilayim. Now, Rashi points out over here, it's so. In other words, the moment I am derelict in my responsibility to go ahead and repair the wall, not that literally it becomes klaya, caring for a bit of mixture in that moment, but the moment there is additional growth. Rashi says over here, Iftar Rashi, Kiddush is atvua im hosif masayim lishna dekra naket pen tikdash amalea. So ultimately, again, once there's more growth with a breached wall, then the resulting produce becomes prohibited. Okay, so we'll say, so v'chai b'achrayas. And therefore, again, I, the owner of the vineyard, am responsible for any damages or loss that have occurred to the owner of the wheat field. So why are you bringing this down? Very simple. Remember, again, the Mishnah used the lashon of mechitza. Right? Hashutzin sharatzu lasos mechitza. The Gemara says, by the way, what's a mechitza? What's a mechitza? Answer number one, guda, a wall. Where do you get that from? We'll say ultimately again from this brisa. From this brisa, mechitzas hakerem shenifritza. So what's a mechitza? A wall. That's the whole reason this is brought up. This is the whole reason it's a wall. By the way, it's also interesting to note that if you look at the lashon of the brisa over here, the brisa says, if I give up, if I essentially abdicate my responsibility of going ahead and of fixing the breach in the wall, then ultimately, again, the produce is kilayim, forbidden mixtures. Now, the truth is, that's not totally true. The produce is really only kilayim when there's actually new growth. And I will say, but you see from your tremendous Musar Haskell as well. In life, the moment you abdicate responsibility, right? The moment you say, not my problem, the moment now sometimes it's not your problem. I mean, but in situations where it is your problem, and you fail to take responsibility for something, take ownership, the problem has been created right then and there. Even though, again, no negative results have been created in that moment, but in life, the moment you abdicate responsibility from something that is your responsibility, then ultimately Isser has been created. Even though the real Isser doesn't take place until later on, but removing responsibility from the self is in and of itself transgressional in nature. Incredible. All right, so we'll say, so that's our first approach. Says the Gemara. Taima, now let's go. Beis and Beis, second line down. So Taima, Diratzu. I will say, now this is very interesting. So remember again, let's go back to the lashon of the Mishnah. So now, first thing we've established is that mechitza means a wall, although we're going to challenge that in just a moment. So Taima Diratzu. Now I will say, the reason ultimately again in the Mishnah that we go ahead and we build a wall, right, between my chatzar and Reuven's chatzar is because we both wanted it. We both wanted it, right? Because that's the lashon of the Mishnah. Hashutfin sheratzu lasos mechitza. So look at Rashi. Taima Diratzu livnos kosel d'midash shneihen hu dechai b'chacham meshiyivnu ben shneim. So we'll say, so ultimately again, the reason why in the Mishnah there's an obligation to build a wall is because both of us want it. The Gemara says, ha lo ratzu in mechai b'nosel. What can you refer from the Mishnah? What can you refer from the Mishnah? I decide I want a wall. Reuven says he doesn't want a wall. Based on the Mishnah, what would you say? I can't force it. Right? Why? Because remember, what does the Mishnah say? Hashutfin sheratzu lasos mechitza. Which sounds like the only time you have to build a wall in a chaser is when both parties and both partners want the wall. If one does and one doesn't, the one that does can't force the one that doesn't. So what do you see from here? Now, first of all, go back to Rashi for just a moment. Rashi says over here, Rashi says over here, there's another piece of information that's going to be floating around in this discussion, which the Gemara is not addressing explicitly, but let's see it in Rashi. V'taimid d'razu, livnos kosel d'midas shneien hu d'chai b'chacham sheyivnu bein shneien l'kaman parech kisharatzu mai habi lihadri b'hu aval lo ratzu shneien shahayu echad omer daya l'chalka b'mosifin shayisedos eitzim tkuim ba'aretz muchim olo kaifin alei. All right, so we'll say, so by the way, we're going to see that it could very well be that you could always go ahead and force a division, right? So for example, again, I could say to Reuven, I want a division, but a division could mean what? A division can mean property markers, right? A division doesn't have to mean a wall. So we'll say, so now remember again, there's a big, and that's why we're trying to understand what mechitza means. Does mechitza, what I understand you could order a division, but with what? So again, so let's go with the idea right now that mechitza means wall. Mechitza means wall. So the Gemara says, the reason that I could force Reuven to put, the reason why Reuven and I are putting up a wall is because we both want it. But if I wanted it and Reuven didn't want it, sounds like, again, I can't force it. Alma, what do you see here? What's that incredible yisod? Hezek ri'iyah lav shmei hezek. So we'll say, okay, now we're being introduced to an incredible yisod over here. Hezek ri'iyah. So we'll say, what's hezek ri'iyah? Literally, again, ocular damage, or visual damage. Right? What does that mean? So we'll say, so this hezek ri'iyah represents the damage that occurs from someone being able to see into my property. Now, what's the damage that occurs if someone is able to see into my property? So again, it's not a damage per se, but I should say the damage manifests itself in a curtailment of the types of activities that I am allowed to go ahead and do in my chutzner. So in other words, if I have complete privacy, I don't know, I'm going to walk around in shorts and a t-shirt. Right? And if I don't have complete privacy, I'm going to feel compelled to wear a shirt and a pair of pants, right? So, Lamaisa, again, now that someone could see into my chutzner, so ultimately, again, it limits what I am able to do. No, don't look at Aaron Raskis. Floridians have a different din, right? That's pretty much Shabbos clothing, right? So just saying, so Lamaisa, it'd be white for Shabbos. So Lamaisa, understand over here that the Gemara says like this. Only reason you're obligated to go ahead and put up walls because both agree. So if one wanted it and the other one doesn't want it, you can't force it. So what do you see from here? That visual damage, right? What we call hezek ri'iyah, the ability to see into someone's property and thereby prevent them from engaging in certain more discrete matters in their chutzner is not called damage. We'll say, now where do you get that from? Because if it was damage, then what? Then one party could force the other to put up the wall. Right? In other words, if Reuven's ability to see into my chutzner is actually a form of damage, then halacha l'maisa, I should be able to force him to put up the wall, even if he doesn't want to do it. To which the Gemara says, so let's go back for just a second. So we'll say, so now, just understand the progression, right? We wanted to define what is mechitza. So now we said, what's mechitza? Mechitza means a wall. Mechitza means a wall. Okay, so now the mechitza means a wall. So now how do I read the Mishnah? So therefore, again, because mechitza means a wall, fine. So therefore the Mishnah reads, if partners agree that they want to divide the property, they put up a wall. Now the only reason ultimately, again, you're putting up walls is because both agree. If one wanted but the other doesn't want, neither party could force the other. Therefore, what do you see from here? Hezek ri'iyah lo shmei hezek. Visual damage is not called damage. Okay, so that's our first approach. Next approach. Ve'ema mechitza plukta. Mechitza doesn't mean a wall. Rather, what does mechitza mean? Mechitza means a division. Right? Lachtzos means a division. So we'll say, so therefore, by the way, before we even go on, the way to read the Mishnah is, Hashutun sharasu lasos mechitza. If partners want to divide up their chutzner, they want to divide it up. Bonin es hakosel. How do we divide up a chutzner? With a wall. So, but mechitza itself doesn't mean a wall. Mechitza means a division. So the Gemara says, "Ve'ema mechitza plukta k'dichsev vatihi." We'll say the Gemara says, "Vatihi mechtzas ha'eda minatzon." So we'll say here it's talking about after the war with Midian. And they divided up all the spoils of war. So it says, "Vatihi mechtzas." Mechtzas means division. So you see, mechitza means to divide. So the Gemara says, so now watch it. Therefore, the way to read the Mishnah is like this. Hashutfin sheratzu lasos mechitza. If shutfin want to go ahead and divide up their property, bonin as hakosel. Ultimately, again, you go ahead and build the wall. Bal karcho. And I will say this could be triggered even against ultimately again the wishes of one of the parties. So I'll say, so again, the way the Gemara is reading is like this. If one of the partners wants to go ahead and divide up his property, then what's the halacha? Bonin esakosel. We force the other to build a wall. In other words, we force the other to participate in the building of a wall. Now, if you could force someone to participate in the building of a wall, what does that show you? Alma hezek ri'iyah shmei hezek. So we'll say, what do you see from here? Visual damage is considered to be damage. The ability to see into someone's property and therefore prevent them or preclude them from engaging in certain more private matters in their own personal property is in and of itself considered to be a damaging force. Incredible. So take a look at Rashi. Rashi says, Plukta, chalukas chatzer shehushvu daitam lecholka, ukigon shelo haya b'ches amos kedei lezeh ukedei lezeh. She'ein ha'echa yachol lakov es chavero lecholka. So we'll say, so Rashi's pointing out over something very interesting, which is something fascinating. That, again, let me tell you this outside, and then we're going to see it inside in just a little bit. We're going to see a distinction between a chatzar. In order for either party to order a division, whether that's a division with a wall or division with property markers, the chatzar itself has to be at least 8 amos. Right, which gives each party dalet amos, which is considered to be the bare minimum of what's considered to be a halachic chatzar. If Reuben and Shimon share an area that is less than 8 amos, neither could order a chalukah. And again, we'll see this explicitly in just a little bit. So I'm sorry, look at that Rashi once more. Plukta. Rashi says over here, Chalukas chatzar, shehoshvu daitam lechalko, kagon shelo haya b'ches amos, kedei lazeh, kedei lazeh. So Rashi is just setting up this case. It could very well be talking about a situation where halacha l'maisa. Actually, let's leave this for a second. Let's go back to the Gemara. Alma hezek ri'iyah shmei hezek. So therefore, I will say, here's what we're doing. According to the first approach, where ultimately again the chitza means a wall. So therefore, again, the way we're reading the Mishnah is only if both parties want the wall can you build the wall. The fact that you need the consent of both parties tells you that what? Hezek ri'iyah lo shmei hezek. Like visual damage is not called damage. According to the second approach, what does mechitza mean? Mechitza just means a division. Either party always has the ability to order a division. This is what I want to highlight over here. I will say, when you're a partner with someone, when you live side by side with someone, you have a shared chatzar, you always have a right to order a division of the land. Right? You always have the ability to do that, assuming that there's at least 8 amos of space. Everybody walks away with at least dalet amos. You always have that ability. So therefore, I will say, again, what it's saying is either party has the ability to go ahead and order the division of the land, right? But halacha l'maisa, because of that, once either party goes ahead and orders the division, they're both compelled to what? To build the wall. Now the fact that they're both compelled to build the wall, what does that show you? Alma hezek ri'iyah shmei hezek. Therefore, visual damage is considered to be damage. So there are two things happening over here. Number one, a machlokas as to what is the definition of mechitza. That's number one. And then along with that is hezek ri'iyah hezek or not hezek, right? Is visual damage, is that considered to be damage or not? And interestingly enough, the answer to that seems to really hinge on how you define mechitza, which is really quite interesting. But if that's the case, I will say, if that's the case, then why does them, if mechitza means division, and mechitza doesn't mean wall, so then there's a better way to phrase the Mishnah. It should say, hashutfin sharatzu lachtzos. It shouldn't say, hashutfin sharatzu lasos mechitza. Rather, it should say, hashutfin sharatzu lachtzos. If partners want to divide up their chatzar. Elamai, so the Gemara says, Elamai, Guda. So the Gemara says, you're right. The truth is, mechitza, let's go back to what we said before, mechitza means a wall. If that's the case, if mechitza means a wall, then it should say, bonin asakosal, bonin osomi baile. Then Rabbi say the Mishnah is redundant. Then it should say, hashutfin sharatzu lasos mechitza, and if mechitza means wall, then what it should say, bonin oso. We built it. It shouldn't say bonin as hakosel, we build the wall, because mechitza already means wall. So just say built it, To which the Gemara says, no, here's the problem. Itana Osef would have just said, also, Hava Amina b'mispas ba'alma. I would have thought ultimately, again, maybe even just property markers, mispas ba'alma, just property markers would have been enough. Kamash Malon Kosel, Kamash on that you have to build a wall. So therefore, we'll say we are still left with. So this is the end of the first sugya. But what are we left with? Machlokes on what is the definition of mechitza? Is mechitza a wall or is mechitza ultimately again a division? That's number one. And number two, we'll say, and again they're all tethered together. Hezek re'iyah, is visual damage considered to be damage or not? So those two pieces are still out there right now. Let's go a little bit weiter. So I'll say, so again, and like I said, the Hezek Re'iyah Sugya, we're gonna come to, we're gonna delve into a little bit more, but just understand this concept exists. This is a big concept in Bava that we're going to talk about. And again, it seems for our purposes right now that it's fundamentally tethered to how you're defining that word mechitza. Next. So the Gemara says we build the wall in the middle. So again, now going with the idea, Reuven and Shimon are neighbors, sharing the same chatzar. They want to go ahead and divide up their chatzar. They build the wall in the middle. The Gemara says pshita. That's obvious. Of course, they build the wall in the middle. Where else would they build it? So it's very interesting. Let's say Reuven is really the one who wanted the wall. Shimon didn't really want it, right? But Reuven convinced Shimon to build the wall. So now what happens? They're about to build it, and they're building it on shared property. What would you have thought? Shimon could say, so maybe Shimon could say, look, Reuven, when I agreed to build the wall, what I agreed to is, I agreed to lose my view of your chatzar. That's what I agreed to. I'm not agreeing to giving up any land of mine to build this wall. Kamashlan, the Mishnah says that when partners agree to build a wall, it is understood that the nature of building a wall in a shared chatzar is that what? Each party contributes 50% of the land necessary. So we'll say, let's go back now. Let's go back to this. We'll say, is it even possible to entertain the possibility that visual damage is not damage? That the ability to see into one's property, someone else's property, is not damage? The Gemara says, listen to this. What did we learn in the Mishnah? Tashma b'chin begina. So we'll say, so remember again, the Mishnah mentioned that this concept of a wall is applicable ultimately again in a gina, in a garden. Now I will say, now the truth is, why else would one need a wall in the garden? Because it could be that a garden also is a place where a person does some more private activities, and therefore, halacha l'maisa, again, you could force the putting up of a wall. Where it's the minhag. The Gemara says, Gina, Shani ki Rabbi Abba. A gina is different. People say, why? Rabbi Abba, Amar Rav Huda, Amar Rav, Asra li Adam la'amod b'sad chavero, b'shashi omedes b'kamasel. So we'll say, this is an incredible Gemara. The halacha is, we'll say, you are not allowed to stand in someone else's field, in a field of standing crop that belongs to someone else. Right? You can't stand in a field of standing crop that belongs to someone else. Or you can't stand in a field that belongs to someone else when it has standing crop. Right? What's the problem over here? What's the problem? So, ayin hara. Right? Rashi says over here, Asli Adam la sheyamod shelo yazikenu ba'ayin hara. So we'll say, the idea over here is ayin hara. Now we'll say, we've spoken about ayin hara many times. What's the idea of ayin hara? That when I have something that someone else does not have, if what I possess causes pain to someone else, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, if my bracha, chas v'shalom, causes pain to another yid, HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes it back. So we'll say, so this is fascinating. So therefore the halacha is, you shouldn't stand in someone else's field when they're standing crop. Because what's going to happen? What's human nature? To get jealous of what other people have. It's normal. Let's remember again, the Torah never prohibits something that's not normal. So if the 10th of the 10 commandments is, do not covet, do not be jealous, don't want what something someone else has, that means that it's normal to be jealous of people. So therefore also the Gemara is suggesting over here that halacha l'maisa, that the reason why you would put up a wall by a gina, by a garden, has nothing to do with hezek re'iyah, has nothing to do with visual damage. Why do you put up a wall by a gina? I don't want other people seeing into my property. Why not? Specifically, again, my produce. Why? I don't want ayin hara. Which I will say, by the way, is also such an incredible idea about, again, even if a person is blessed with incredible gashmios, with incredible material bracha, how careful a person has to be about how they broadcast that bracha, right? So the idea over here is, Baruch Hashem, I have a successful crop. I'm going to put up a wall by my field. I don't need people seeing everything that I have. It's just not necessary. But again, I'm both saying nothing to do with hezek re'iyah. The Gemara says v'hav v'chein katani, but it says by gina v'chein. V'chein means that it sounds like the halacha by gina is the same halacha that we saw by the chatzar, and just like by chatzar is by hezek re'iyah, so too over here is about hezek re'iyah as well. To which the Gemara says no, agvil v'gazis. That's talking about, again, when it says v'chein, it was talking about the building materials. That when you put up a wall by the gina, what is the wall made of? The wall is made of whatever people commonly build walls out of in this particular locale. Okay, good. Let's go back. So we'll say, so Tashma. So we'll say, so again, we're struggling with this idea. Is hezek re'iyah hezek or not? So Tashma. Kosel chatzor shenafal v'chayvin also livnos ad dal rama. So we'll say, so now another halacha. We are going to see this in just a couple of days from now. So we'll say, let's say again, partners have a wall. Right? Reuven and Shimon are neighbors in a chatzar. They have a wall. The wall falls down. What's the halacha? We obligate them to rebuild the wall up to Dalet Amos. So we'll say, so what do you see from there? The fact that we obligate. So now let's say Reuven and Shimon say, it's okay, it's fine, it doesn't matter, we don't have to rebuild it. The halacha says, no, you have to rebuild it. So we'll say, what do you see from here? You see from there, halacha l'maaseh hezek re'iyah is hezek. Visual damage is damage, because if visual damage wasn't damage, then what? Leave the wall alone. To which one says, no, nafal shayni. It's different, because one can make the argument, once you had the wall there already, right, that means partners at some point in time wanted the wall. So once already the wall was there, one can make the argument, once the wall is there, there's an obligation to put it back up, even if it falls down. Vitikari lamakari. So what was the halomim of asking the question to begin with? Sefer tzrichale. So we'll say, because the truth is, the focus is really in the second part of the brayso. So what does the second part of the brayso say? Listen to this. So midalet amos ulamala in mechayvin also. So we'll say, it could very well be that the chiddush is in the second part. Let's say we'll say the wall was 8 amos. The wall was 8 amos. So Reuven and Shimon had a wall that was 8 amos. The wall fell down. So now we'll say, now the halacha demands that they rebuild the wall, but they are not obligated to rebuild the entire height of the wall. Instead, what are they obligated to do? To rebuild the first 4 amos of the wall. Okay, Tashma. So we'll say, now watch this. So the Gemara says, we'll say, now this is a different kind of case. We're going to talk about this as well, but in a chatzar. So let's say again, you have multiple people who live in a courtyard, multiple homes. The halach is, we'll say, all of the residents of the courtyard are forced. There's like an assessment. Everyone is forced to build the guardhouse and the gate to the chatzar. So we'll say it's interesting. So the door to the chatzar. Rashi points out here that what they would do is they'd be the chatzar. The chatzar was walled. What they would do by the entrance of the chatzar, they would create like a semicircle around the entrance, and there would be a small entrance on the side. This prevented the Bnei Rishon from looking into the chatzar. Right? No one, because that way when people are passing by, no one could see in, because the entryway was on the end of the arc of the semicircle. That way again, everybody got in kind of from the side. So we'll say, so what do you see from here? You see from here that hezek re'iyah is hezek, right? So you clearly see that halacha l'maisa, the fact that we could compel everyone in the chatzar to go ahead and contribute towards the wall and the door indicates that visual damage is damage. To which the Gemara says, no. Hezek de rabbim shayni. We'll say it's different. Hezek re'iyah of the rabbim. We'll say, so living in a place where everybody who passes by could see in, everyone agrees that that's hezek re'iyah, that's visual damage. That's very different because again, you live right by the shrub, everybody could see into your chutzner. Okay, that's hezek re'iyah. But it could very well be that just neighbor to neighbor, that's not hezek re'iyah. The Gemara says, really? The yachid lo? Is that true? Tashma. The Gemara says, "Ein cholkin esach chatzar ad shei dalet amos lezeh v'dalet amos lezeh." So we'll say that we just saw this before. Halacha l'maisa. So again, you can't force a chalukah. You can't force a division until there is dalet amos. Ultimately, again for each party. So the Gemara says, "Ha yishba kedei lezeh cholkin." But halacha l'maisa again, if there are dalet amos for each party, then you could force a division. So the Gemara says, "My love bekosel." Are we not talking about forcing a division with a wall? In which case you see hezek re'iyah is hezek. Lo b'misis ba'alma. Ultimately, again, no. Rather, we just mean property markers. So we'll stop over here for today. We'll pick up a Hashem with this last tashma tomorrow. So we'll say, but just pointing out. So we are still in the midst of this, right? So again, this machlokes is hezek re'iyah hezek or not. So that's still this machlokes. Visual damage, the ability to see into someone's property. Is that considered to be a damaging force or not? That machlokes is still going on now. The one important part to remember is the one thing that everyone agrees on is what? Hezeka derabim. Certainly, again, when you live by Rosh Hashanah, the ability of the public to see into your property is absolutely considered to be a damaging force, and that's why we could assess all of the members of the chatzar to have to pay towards proper privacy measures. I'll say, shkoyach. All right, Chavra on Zoom, have a wonderful day, everyone. Great to see everyone.